I did this with Helldivers and it worked well enough, so I figured I might as well try it here as well. This is a small list of everything you do or don't want to do around others. By the way, if you're wondering when are more lore videos, they were promised to me. Great question. I'll be doing it by way of spending an entire season covering whatever chapter DLC gets released, from successor chapters all the way to their renowned heroes. Back to the topic at hand. Some of this information may seem like common sense to you. If so, good job. You're doing things correctly. Keep being a good example. But some people have no idea, so this has to be said. And obviously, these rules aren't cardinal sins. They're just directions to not behave like a complete jackwad. If you have some that I don't mention, feel free to add them yourself in the comments. Let's begin. Rule 1 is a big one that even I'm guilty of breaking sometimes. Quit stealing elite executions. Actually, let's extend this. Get out of the way when someone is squaring off with mid-sized targets. Bumbling around on top of the fight just screws with your teammate's ability to interpret the enemy. There is not enough room for the two of you. Respect the 1v1 and allow them to handle business and get their armor back. If you are really intent on helping, cover them while they fight. Pick off the ranged and small-sized interruptions. They will be grateful. With the new update, you don't actually need to steal executions for armor anyway. Just hit a single parry and you'll be fine. If that feature changes in the future, which I'm thinking it has to because it's kinda janky, ask before you take. Every enemy kill is a good one, yes, but let your teammates have what they have earned. Rule 2. Don't vacuum items. You need to coordinate with your team and allocate your resources. This is not as important in low levels because resources aren't as scarce and you'll always have a medkit on hand. But when you start approaching Ruthless or Substantial, you need to pay more attention where things are going. If there are spare bullets, you funnel them to ballistic reliant classes like Sniper or Heavy. If armor packs show up, you will divert them to your less armored teammates or the Gene Seed holder. The same will apply to medkits with a slight caveat. If someone has a death mark, and that medkit will overheal them, they get it to clear their mortal wound status. While we're on the topic, I must mention, Gene Seed doesn't automatically go to the class with the most survivability. It's meant to go to the teammate you can most rely on not to go down. Now, most of the time, yes, that is the most survivable class. However, it is not a constant. The other coveted consumable, Guardian Relics, work the opposite way of the Gene Seed. These go to your worst teammates first. If you are that worst teammate, do not use the self-revive until the last second. Someone can still revive you, and you get to keep the relic if so. Some may say it's a lifeline for your best player, but barring a one-off scenario, your best player probably shouldn't be dying anyway because the game's gotten dramatically easier, so it's kinda wasted on them. After that, the only thing left is grenades. These are pretty first come, first serve. Now occasionally an assault will get cranky when you take crack grenades, but here's the reality of the matter. If you use those grenades intelligently to remove trouble, who gives a shit who gets them? Admittedly, the melee classes are more in need of that single target range damage, so if you don't mind, you should still mark them up for the melee characters or tactical to use if you're not going to. Oh, and if you're not searching those clusters of green boxes at all, start, because that's where all the loot is. I know I say this very frequently, but it can't be overstated. Know your role and play it well, or at least to the best of your ability. Let's just do a quick recap of class priorities. Tactical. You act as a Swiss Army knife, adapting to the field of battle and providing assistance wherever the need arises. Assault. You play mean as fuck, baiting out counter-punches and gun strikes against the biggest targets you can find. Vanguard. You are a hit-and-run specialist. You used to feel sad a lot and wished you had your Eternal War counterpart's ability, but now that ability isn't very good, and you have become functionally immortal with the new parry mechanic, so I guess do whatever you want. Bulwark. You aren't too angry to die, but you're way too fucking stubborn. Get in the pit and start throwing hands. Sniper. Find your perch and keep the wolves away, little bird. Heavy. You identify the crowd and get rid of it, expeditiously. And remember, No rushing. If anyone's getting mad because you're trying your best in a difficulty that you are reasonably prepared for, they are the unreasonable one, and you have no obligation to give a shit. Rule 3. Be on the same page as your teammates. In addition to knowing how to play your role, you need to know how your team plays. Is it a rush-through mission? Is it a collection run, aimed to find everything on the map? Are you doing this to level up weapons? These methods will look incredibly different, and you don't want to figure out the hard way. When you're all running in different directions with different intentions, it gets messy fast. As a general rule, you should keep good communication with your team, but at the bare minimum, you need to know what you're going in for. Do not wander from your squad. Notice, I'm saying wandering, not repositioning. If you've got a plan, by all means, relocate at will. But if you're wandering aimlessly, don't get upset if you go down and there's nobody to help you. On the topic of teams and communication, Rule 4. Don't be a prick. Sometimes you're going to get a player who can't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. The only thing you can do is leave or shrug it off. People who earn the right to brag often realize that they don't need to soon after, and getting mad at somebody else just helps expose your own shortcomings. And I'm not going to say you can't talk shit, but it's definitely not advised, even if I do myself time to time. Yeah, I can be garbage too. I've never shied away at the fact that I'm kind of an idiot on occasion. Look at how I talk. It's not hard to believe I get in a couple arguments once in a while. What's important is that we try not to be a prick. Even a 30% success rate is better than letting yourself be a dick all the time. Point is, if you see a low level doing bad, it's fine. It's just the way it is. They don't know shit about dick. You can babysit them or forget about them in a full bathtub. The end result is probably going to remain unchanged anyways. But if you do want to take care of them, who knows? You might end up making a friend. And the final guideline I have for you today, Rule 5, applies in the opposite direction. Some people just aren't suited for certain difficulties, and you have to be honest with yourself. If you have a party that's willing to carry you, the case is a little different. However, if you're in public matchmaking, please direct yourself to a difficulty that you can handle. If you don't, it makes the game less fun because it's now one or two people that are playing while being held back. Your goal should be accentuate your teammates, not force them to finish jobs for you. It's not easy to admit, but some of you have to be real with yourselves. You need to practice some fundamentals. That's all. Now, with this most recent patch, you're probably capable of going up a difficulty from where you used to be. This is because pretty much every class has been indirectly buffed by the crushing nerfs dealt to enemies. Just keep it reasonable and respectful. That's all I was able to come up with for the time being. Maybe I'll do a second installment later on down the line, but I think some of you may have your own rules, so feel free to share them in the comments like I said earlier in efforts to educate the less experienced players. Next video, I will likely be digging more into the patch's effects because I do have some concerns about challenge being negated. But I also don't want to make a video bitching and moaning if I don't have to, so I'm going to give it some time to breathe to see if that's even necessary. Other than that, feel free to join the Discord server in the description if you're old enough, and as always, thank you for watching, and have a good night.